Hello and welcome. It is time to let the day and all of its concerns simply fade away. Find your most comfortable position and gently close your eyes. Let's begin with a single, slow breath. Breathe in deeply. And as you breathe out, feel the tension begin to leave your body. There is nothing else you need to do tonight. It's nothing to focus on and nothing to remember. The story I am about to tell is just a quiet murmur in the background, a calm and steady presence. Tonight we will travel back to 14th century France to hear the story of the betrayal of the Knights Templar and the ordeal of an accused knight. So just relax and allow the sound of my voice to accompany you as you drift towards a deep and peaceful sleep. Our story begins on a cool, clear evening in the autumn of the year 1307. The day is Thursday, the 12th of October. We're on out, a night of the Order of the Poor Fellow Soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon. You are a Knight Templar. Your home is a commandery in the rolling, fertile countryside of northern France. It is not the great Crusader fortress of your youth in the Holy Land. It is a large, prosperous, and well-ordered agricultural estate, a place of fields, barns, and a simple, sturdy stone chapter house. Your life here is one of quiet, disciplined routine, strange and unique fusion of two worlds, the world of the monk and the world of the warrior. Like a monk, your day is governed by the ringing of the chapel bell. You rise before dawn for the service of matins, your voice joining the low, chanting rumble of your brother knights in the small, cold chapel. You eat your meals in silence in the refectory, listening to a reading from the scriptures. You have taken vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. You own nothing, not even the white woolen mantle with its distinctive red cross that you wear over your armor. It, like your sword and your life, belongs to the order. But you are also a warrior. You are a member of the most elite, most feared, and most respected fighting force in all of Christendom. Your afternoons are spent not in quiet contemplation, but in the tilt yard, the training ground. You are a man in your 40s, your body a roadmap of old scars from battles fought in the scorching sun of Outremer. You keep your chainmail hauberk meticulously clean, every ring oiled and free of rust. Your great heavy broadsword is kept sharp enough to shave with. You are a soldier of Christ, and you keep your weapons and your body in a constant state of readiness for the next call to war. Tonight, however, the world is at peace. You and your 30 brother knights have just finished the final prayer of the day, the service of Compline. A deep, quiet peace has settled over the commandery. You walk through the stone corridors. The only sound, the soft padding of your leather-soled boots, and the distant, gentle lowing of cattle in the barns. You feel a profound sense of security, of belonging. Your order is the most powerful institution in Europe, second only to the papacy itself. You are the Pope's personal soldiers, accountable to no king or bishop. Your order is the banker to all of Christendom, its financial power immense, and its integrity unquestioned. You are a Templar. You are untouchable. You retire to the dormitory, a long, simple room where the knights sleep in communal beds. You lie down, pull your rough woolen blanket over you, and you fall into a deep and dreamless sleep. The sleep of a man with a clear conscience, a man who knows his place in the world, secure in his faith and in the unshakable power of his holy order. The awakening is a violent, chaotic, and incomprehensible shock. It is still dark, hours before the bell for matins is due to ring. You are torn from your sleep not by the familiar gentle call of the bell, but by the sound of shouting, of splintering wood, and of the screaming of men. You sit up, your mind a confused fog of sleep. The dormitory is filled with strange men, carrying torches and drawn swords. They are not Saracen raiders, not bandits. They're Frenchmen soldiers, wearing the livery of the King of France, Philip the Fair. Before you can even think to reach for a weapon, you are dragged from your bed, your arms wrenched behind your back and bound tightly with a rope. All around you, your brother knights, the most formidable warriors in the world, are being similarly overpowered in their sleep. Their faces a mask of stunned, sleepy disbelief. You are herded, half-dressed and bound, out into the main courtyard of the commandery. The entire compound is swarming with the king's men, the royal seneschal and his bailiffs. A great fire has been lit in the center of the yard, its wild, dancing light casting long, monstrous shadows. You and your brothers are forced to kneel in the cold mud. You look around and you see that there is no resistance. You are soldiers, and you are being arrested by the agents of the lawful King of France. Do your own Templar rule? The code you have sworn to live and die by commands you to obey the secular rulers of the lands you reside in. You are trapped by your own vow of obedience. A man on horseback, a royal official, unrolls a great parchment scroll, and in a loud, clear voice that rings with a cold, legalistic authority, he begins to read the warrant for your arrest. The words he speaks are so monstrous, so bizarre, and so utterly insane that at first you cannot comprehend them. He speaks of a secret inquiry, of secret testimony gathered by the king's agents. He accuses you and the entire order of the Knights Templar of heresy. The list of charges is a torrent of filth and blasphemy. You are accused of denying Jesus Christ during your secret initiation ceremonies. You are accused of spitting, trampling, and urinating on the crucifix. You are accused of worshiping a demonic severed head, an idol named Baphomet. You are accused of institutionalized sodomy, of betraying the Holy Land to the Saracens, of 100 other grotesque and impossible crimes. You listen, your mind reeling, a wave of nausea and disbelief washing over you. This is not just an accusation. It is a fundamental inversion of your entire world.
Oh, yes.
You have dedicated your whole life to the defense of the cross, and you are now being accused of spitting on it.
Me.
You have shed your blood fighting the enemies of Christ, and you are now being called a heretic. You look at the faces of your brother knights, and you see the same stunned, uncomprehending horror. This is not a mistake. This is a deliberate, well-planned, and monstrous lie. The official finishes his reading. You and your brothers are pulled to your feet. The sun is now beginning to rise on the morning of Friday, the 13th of October. It is a dawn of unimaginable betrayal. The men who went to sleep as the proud, untouchable soldiers of Christ have woken up as helpless prisoners, accused of being the secret servants of the devil. Your ordeal has just begun. The initial chaotic shock of the arrest gives way to a grim, orderly, and deeply humiliating procedure. You and your brother knights, your hands bound tightly behind your backs, are herded into the courtyard of your own home. The first act of your accusers is a symbolic one, designed to strip you of your very identity. A royal sergeant, his face impassive, takes his knife and, one by one, cuts the red cross from the front of your white mantles, the holy symbol of your order. With a few simple sawing motions, 200 years of history, of piety, and of military glory are reduced to a pile of red cloth on the muddy ground. You are no longer Templars in the eyes of the king. You are simply heretics. You are not kept in your commandery. You are marched out, a sad, shuffling procession of bound men and loaded onto rough, open-sided carts. The journey to the nearest royal prison is a public spectacle of shame. As the carts rattle through the local villages and towns, the people you have protected and governed for decades come out to stare. Their faces are not filled with the sympathy you might have hoped for. The king's propaganda has been swift and effective. For weeks, rumors have been secretly spread by his agents. Tales of the Templars' immense, hidden wealth, of their arrogance, of strange and unholy secret rituals. The crowd looks at you now not as the heroes of the Crusades, but with a new fearful suspicion. You are the rich, the powerful, the secretive, and the common folk are now invited to witness your fall. They whisper and they point. The betrayal is not just from the king. It is from the very people you were sworn to serve. Your destination is a grim stone fortress, a royal prison under the direct control of the king's men. The moment you enter its walls, you are plunged into a world that is the complete antithesis of your Templar life. Your commandery was a place of order, of cleanliness, of a simple monastic comfort. The prison is a place of filth, of chaos, and of profound misery. The unity of your brotherhood is immediately and deliberately broken. You are separated from your commander, from the men you have lived and fought with for years. You are thrown, alone, into a small, dark, and foul-smelling cell. The door is a heavy slab of oak, with only a small barred grate. The floor is cold, damp stone, covered with a thin, reeking layer of old straw. A single bucket in the corner serves as your latrine. This is your new world. The first few days are a blur of cold, hunger, and a deep, gnawing disbelief. We're a knight of the temple, a soldier of the Pope. How can the King of France do this? Surely this is a terrible mistake. Surely the Pope will intervene, and this injustice will be righted. You cling to this hope as a drowning man clings to a piece of driftwood. After 3 days in this isolating darkness, the door to your cell is unbolted. 2 guards drag you out and down a series of damp, torchlit corridors. They bring you to an interrogation chamber. This is not a clerical court. There are no priests, no scribes, and the room is bare, save for a table, a few chairs, and in the corner a collection of iron tools whose purpose is horrifyingly clear. The men who wait for you are not inquisitors. They are royal agents, hard-faced men who look at you not as a soul to be saved, but as an obstacle from which information must be extracted. One of them, a man with cold, intelligent eyes, reads the list of accusations again, his voice dripping with a cynical contempt. He reads the charges of denying Christ, of spitting on the cross, of worshiping the head of an idol. When he is finished, he looks at you. You will confess to these charges, he says, his voice flat. It is not a question, it is a command. You are Arnaut, a veteran of the siege of Acre, a man who has faced down Saracen armies. You are filled with a righteous, holy fury. These are lies, you roar, your voice echoing in the stone room. Vile, blasphemous lies. I am a loyal soldier of Christ and of his church. I would rather die 1,000 deaths than confess to such filth. The man smiles, a cold, thin smile that does not reach his eyes. We can accommodate a death, he says, but we have found that one is usually sufficient, and it need not be a quick one. He gestures to the corner of the room, to a heavy wooden frame from which hangs a system of ropes and pulleys. Your Grand Master, Brother Jacques de Maul, is a reasonable man, the interrogator continues, his voice deceptively calm. He has already confessed. He has admitted to the denial of Christ. Your own commander has confessed. Hundreds of your brothers all across France have confessed. Are you more pious than they? Are you stronger? The words are a physical blow. Damal confessed. 'Tis a lie. It must be a lie. A trick to break your will. But the seed of doubt, of a terrible, world-shattering uncertainty, has been planted. I will not confess to a lie, you say, your own voice now quieter, less certain. Then we must persuade you, the man says with a sigh, as if you are a particularly stubborn child. He gives a quiet nod to the two guards who seize your arms. You are stripped of your tunic. Your hands are tied behind your back. The rope from the ceiling is attached to your bound wrists. The initial shock of the arrest has now evaporated, replaced by the cold, hard, and immediate reality of your situation. This is not a mistake. This is not a legal proceeding. This is a political purge, and you are just a piece of meat in the king's great, brutal machine. You realize now that your hope was a fool's dream. The Pope is far away, and the king's torturers are here. You are a warrior of the temple. Your entire life has been a discipline of the body, a hardening against pain and fear. You have endured the heat of the desert, the agony of infected wounds, and the terror of a Saracen cavalry charge. You believe your will is a fortress, your faith an unbreakable shield. You are about to discover the terrible, mechanical science of pain. The guards pull the rope. Your feet lift from the stone floor. The first sensation is a sharp, grinding pressure on your wrist bones, bound tightly behind you. Then, a fire ignites in your shoulder joints as your arms are forced into a position of impossible, unnatural strain. You are hoisted into the air until your toes are just barely clear of the ground, your entire body weight hanging from your dislocated arms. The pain is a white, blinding, and absolute reality. It is not the clean, sharp pain of a sword cut. It is a deep tearing and structural agony, the feeling of your own body being systematically torn apart from its very foundations. Every breath is a shallow, desperate gasp that sends a fresh, searing wave of fire through your chest and shoulders. And through this fog of pure physical torment, the calm, reasonable voice of your interrogator continues, a detached and intellectual counterpoint to your animal agony. It is a simple thing, brother. Arnaut, the voice says. We do not ask you to betray a military secret. We do not ask you to renounce your crown. We ask you only to confirm what your Grand Master and your brothers have already told us. Just a few simple words. Let us what you did at your reception into the order. Tell us that you denied the Christ. You try to answer, to curse him, to call upon God, but your mind can no longer form the words. The pain is a roaring, deafening ocean, and your consciousness is a tiny, flickering candle about to be extinguished. You manage to groan. I did not, double quotes record that the accused attempts to deny the charge. The interrogator says to a scribe you had not even noticed was in the room. Think of your brothers, Arnaut, the voice continues, soft and persuasive. They have found the mercy that comes with confession. The pain is stopped for them. It can stop for you. Just say the words. I denied him. Say it, and you can rest. The fire in your shoulders reaches a new, unbearable intensity. You feel a wet, sickening pop as the head of your humerus is ripped from its socket. A scream, a raw, inhuman sound is torn from your throat. Your vision whites out, and for a moment you are blessed with the verge of unconsciousness. It is then that they lower you. Just as you are about to find the sweet release of oblivion, The rope slackens, and you collapse onto the stone floor in a broken, weeping heap.
Ow.
The pain does not stop, changes, becoming a deep, throbbing, and nauseating agony. The torturer, the silent, blank-faced man, steps forward. He places his heavy boot on your back, grabs your arms, and with a single, brutal, practiced motion, he wrenches your shoulder back into its socket. The second scream is even worse than the first. You lie on the floor, gasping and sobbing, a broken thing. The interrogator kneels beside you, his voice still a calm, patient whisper. We can do this all day, Arnout. We can add weights to your feet. We can do this tomorrow and the day after. Or this can all be over. Now tell me, did you deny the Christ upon your reception? You look at him through a haze of tears and sweat. The fortress of your will has been breached. Your faith is no shield against this. Your body has betrayed your spirit. All you want is for this to end. You want the pain to stop. You want to sleep. Yes, you hear a voice say, a hoarse, broken whisper that you barely recognize as your own. Yes, I denied him. The words are a poison. The moment they leave your lips, you feel a spiritual pain so profound it makes the physical agony in your shoulders seem like a dull ache. You have just committed the very blasphemy they accused you of. You have betrayed your God, your order, and your own soul. All to save your flesh from a pain that you now know will simply be brought back tomorrow if you refuse. The interrogator gives a small, satisfied nod. Good, he says. The truth has set you free. He rises and speaks to the scribe. Record that the accused, without further coercion and of his own free will, has confessed to the charge of apostasy. You are dragged back to your cell and thrown onto the filthy straw. You lie there in the darkness, your body a universe of throbbing pain. But it is the agony in your soul that is the true torture. The king's men have what they wanted. They have their confession. It's the pride, the honor, the piety of Arnout, the Knights Templar, have all been burned away in the fire of that single agonizing hour. The betrayal of the dawn, the betrayal by your king, is now complete. For it has been answered by the most terrible betrayal of all, the betrayal of yourself. You lie in the damp, filthy straw of your cell, a prisoner in the ruin of your own body. The days that follow your ordeal in the torture chamber are a long gray fog of pain. Your shoulders feel as though they are filled with hot ground glass. Every movement, every breath is a fresh wave of agony. You cannot feed yourself. A guard shoves a piece of hard black bread and a cup of water through the slot in your door, and you must eat it like an animal on the floor, your arms all but useless. But the physical pain, as immense as it is, pales in comparison to the torment in your soul. You are a man who is broken. The words you spoke in that chamber, yes, I denied him, echo in the silence of your cell. A constant, self-inflicted accusation. You have betrayed your vows, your faith, your God, and the very honor that was the bedrock of your entire existence. The shame is a heavier and more permanent weight than any the torturer could have applied. You are left alone with this pain and this shame for several days. It is a deliberate and calculated cruelty. Your captors are allowing the memory of the physical torture and the reality of your spiritual failure to fester, to break down any last pockets of resistance in your mind. When the interrogators finally return, their demeanor has changed once more. The pretense of saving your soul is gone. The cold threat of violence is now a known fact. Their approach now is that of architects, of craftsmen, and you are their raw material. They have your first confession. Now they will use it to build their case. Brother Arnout, the lead interrogator, begins, his voice now brisk and businesslike. When he and a scribe are seated at a small table that has been brought into your cell, the space is cramped, the single candle casting long, wavering shadows. Your admission of apostasy was a good and necessary first step, but it is only the beginning of your confession. Sign of this magnitude is never a single act. It is a symptom of a deeper sickness. We are here to help you purge it all. He consults a piece of parchment. Let us speak of the crucifix, he says. You have admitted to denying the Christ. Now tell us of the ritual of spitting upon the cross. You stare at him, your mind a dull blank of pain and exhaustion. I do not remember such a thing, you mumble. The interrogator's eyes narrow, and he gives a small, almost imperceptible nod to the guard standing by the door. The guard takes a single, deliberate step towards you. The message is unspoken, but it is as clear as a scream. The pain can return at any moment. Perhaps your memory is clouded, the interrogator says, his voice losing its businesslike tone and regaining a sharper, colder edge. Allow me to help you. Your brothers who have already confessed have described it in great detail. They say it was a part of your reception ceremony. They say that after you made your vows, you were shown a cross, and you were ordered to spit upon it. Is your memory now returning, Brother Arnout? You look at the guard, then back at the interrogator. The fire in your shoulders, which had subsided to a deep, throbbing ache, seems to flare anew with the memory of the rope. You understand the game? There is only one correct answer to any question they ask. Yes, you whisper, the word tasting like ash in your mouth. Yes, I remember now. Spat upon the cross. Good, the interrogator says, his voice once again calm and professional. Cord. He says to the scribe that the accused freely confesses to the sacrilege of spitting upon the crucifix, and so it begins. The forging of your confession. It is a slow, methodical, and collaborative process. You are the author, but they are the editors, and the story they wish to write is a monstrous one. They move down the list of their grotesque accusations, and with each one, they guide you, they prompt you, they help you to remember the details of crimes you have never committed. Tell us of the idol, the interrogator says, moving to the next charge. Tell us of the demonic head, Baphomet, that you worship in your secret chapters. I have never seen such a thing, you say, your voice a little stronger, the absurdity of the charge momentarily overriding your fear. Are you sure, Arnout? The interrogator asks, his voice soft and dangerous. Are you sure you wish to challenge the testimony of your own Grand Master? He has described it, a head with a long gray beard. Does that not ... jog your memory? You are trapped. To deny it is to invite a return to the chamber of torment. But how can you describe something that does not exist? I saw a head, you stammer, seizing on the details he has given you. Yes, it had a beard. It was ... old. Excellent, the interrogator says. A surgeon, pleased with a successful incision. And what did you do with this head? Did you adore it? Did you kiss it? Yes, you whisper, your eyes squeezed shut, a profound sense of self-loathing washing over you. I kissed it. The scribe's quill scratches away, transforming your pathetic, desperate lies into a coherent, flowing narrative of diabolical worship. You are no longer just a broken man. You're a storyteller, a co-creator of the very slander that is destroying you. Your brothers and your entire order. Each lie you tell is another stone in the grate. False edifice they are building, an edifice that will one day be used as the justification for your own destruction. The days that follow your initial broken confession are a descent into a new kind of hell. Now, the overt threat of the torture chamber has been replaced by a quiet, collaborative, and deeply insidious process of storytelling. God, oh no. You are no longer being interrogated. You are being interviewed like a poet, and the subject of your great work is the damnation of your own order. The interrogator, his voice now almost friendly, a co-conspirator in your self-destruction, guides you through the rest of the absurd charges. Let us speak of the reception ceremony, he says, as if discussing a pleasant memory. You have admitted to the spitting. Good. Now, tell us of the kisses. The Grand Master has told us of the kisses. On the mouth, on the navel, and at the base of the spine. A strange custom, is it not? Tell us how it was for you. You are a monk who has taken a vow of chastity, a warrior who has lived a life of ascetic discipline. The accusation is so grotesque, so deeply offensive to your very being, that a part of you wants to scream, to leap at him, to fight. But the memory of the rope, the fire in your shoulders, is a powerful and effective leash. You have learned your lesson. The truth is irrelevant. All that matters is giving him the words he needs. Yes, you say, your voice a dead, hollow monotone. There were kisses. As you say, excellent, the interrogator says, a craftsman pleased with his work. Record, he instructs the scribe, that the accused freely confirms the charge of engaging in obscene and ritualized kisses, a practice common to the entire order. And so it continues. You are forced to confess to financial crimes, to admitting that the order's immense wealth was gained through a pact with Saracen sorcerers. And then comes the final, most terrible part. They are not content with your own damnation. They need you to condemn your brothers. A conspiracy of this magnitude, the interrogator says, leaning forward, his voice a confidential whisper. It requires many men. You did not act alone, Arnell. We know this. We need the names of the other knights who were present at these secret rites, the names of those who led the worship of the idol. This is the ultimate betrayal. To save your own flesh, you must now actively condemn the very men with whom you have shared bread, with whom you have fought and bled, the men bound to you by the most sacred of military and religious vows. You hesitate, a final flickering rebellion of your conscience. The interrogator's eyes harden. Do not be foolish, Arnaut, he says, his voice losing all of its feigned warmth. Do not force us to return to the other room. Your memory has been so good today. And so the names come. You start with the dead. Men you know were killed at the siege of Acre, a small, pathetic attempt to spare the living. But the interrogator is not a fool. He has the order's records. These men are dead, he says impatiently. Give us the living. You whisper the names of men you dislike, of men you know to be arrogant or corrupt. And then, as they press you harder, you give them the names of your friends, of good and pious men, your voice a choked and broken thing. With every name you speak, you feel another piece of your own soul dying. Finally, after many such sessions, your confession is complete. It is a long, detailed, and internally consistent document, a masterpiece of slander that you have been forced to co-author. The king's men now have exactly what they need. A full confession from a respected Templar knight that confirms every one of their lurid charges. Just when you think your ordeal might be over, a new set of figures enters your life. They are not the king's agents. They're Dominican friars, their faces pale and scholarly. Their black and white robes a stark contrast to the secular dress of your first interrogators. They are the official inquisitors of the papacy. The Pope, Clement V, has finally intervened, demanding that the trial of this great religious order be handled by the Church, not by the king. For a brief, fleeting moment, a wild and impossible hope ignites in your chest. These are men of God. Surely they will see the truth. Surely they will understand that your confession was a product of torture and terror. You are brought before them in a different chamber, one that is set up like a formal ecclesiastical court. But your hope is extinguished in an instant. The lead inquisitor, a man with cold, intelligent eyes, does not ask you for your story. He holds up a scroll of parchment. It is the confession you gave to the king's men. "We have here your full and frank admission of heresy," the inquisitor says, his voice even calmer and more chillingly detached than the king's agent. "It is a terrible record of your sins. We are here today to have you confirm it under the sacred authority of the Holy Office. It's a final step in your journey towards penitence. You are caught in a new and even more perfect trap. The king's men use the threat of future pain to make you speak. The Church is now using your own words, the lies you have already told, to bind you forever. If you recant your confession now, you will be a relapsed heretic. A man who has lied to the Holy Office, a crime for which the only punishment is to be burned at the stake. If you confirm your confession, you are admitting, freely and before God, that you are everything they say you are. You look at the cold, expectant faces of the priests. You think of the flames. Your long war is over. You have no fight left. With a voice that is the ghost of your own, you repeat the lies. You tell them of the spitting, of the idol, of the kisses. The words are easier to say now, a well-rehearsed script. The scribe of the Inquisition records it all. The forging of your confession is now complete. I have been extracted by the king and ratified by the Church. It is now an official, undeniable, and sacred truth. You are no longer a holy warrior or a loyal knight. You are a self-admitted heretic, a traitor to Christ, your identity forever destroyed and rewritten by the very powers you once swore to serve. Your ratification of the confession before the papal inquisitors is the final act of your self-destruction. You have now lied not only to the king's agents to save your body, but to God's agents to save your soul from the perceived sin of recantation. The circle of your damnation is complete. With your confession now a permanent and officially sanctioned record of the Church, your life as a prisoner changes once more. You are transferred from the brutal, direct custody of the king's men to an ecclesiastical prison. The physical conditions are marginally better. The straw on the floor is cleaner, the bread is less stale, and the water is fresh. But these small comforts are a cruel joke, for the prison of your mind has never been more profound. You are no longer held in solitary confinement. You are placed in a large vaulted chamber with 24 other Templar knights. For a fleeting moment, the sight of your brothers, the familiar white mantles now stripped of their crosses, brings a surge of comfort. Oh, but this feeling dies the moment you see the looks in their eyes. The room is a society of ghosts, divided by a silent, agonizing schism. On one side of the room are the men who, through some miracle of fortitude or perhaps through less brutal interrogation, have refused to confess. They are the resistors. Their faces are gaunt and bruised. but their eyes hold a spark of defiant, righteous anger. They look at you, the confessor, with a mixture of profound pity and a quiet, unbridgeable contempt. On your side of the room are the men like yourself, the broken ones. You recognize them immediately. They have the same hollow look in their eyes, the same aura of deep, unhealable shame. You do not speak of what you have done. You do not have to. It is a shared, unspoken knowledge that hangs in the air between you, a permanent poison. You have betrayed your vows, and you have betrayed each other, and you must now live together in the quiet hell of that knowledge. The initial acute phase of your ordeal is over. Now begins the long, slow, and grinding phase of waiting. The trial of the Knights Templar is not a swift affair. It is a great, slow-moving battle of politics and faith between the King of France and the Pope, a battle that will rage for years. And you and the thousands of other knights imprisoned across Europe are the helpless pawns in this great game. News from the outside world filters into your prison in scraps and rumors, brought by new prisoners or sympathetic guards. You hear of the great papal commissions that have been established to hear the testimony of the knights. You hear that in other kingdoms in England and Spain. In Germany, where the knights were not subjected to the systematic torture of the French king, the vast majority of them are being declared innocent, their testimony a powerful defense of the order's piety. A dangerous, fragile hope begins to stir in the hearts of the resistors. Perhaps the Pope will see the truth. Perhaps the order will be exonerated. But you, the confessor, feel no such hope. Your own lie, and the lies of hundreds of others like you, have been forged into a powerful weapon for the king. You know that your false testimony will be used to condemn the very men whose innocence you are now hearing about from other lands. The years begin to pass. 1307 becomes 1308. 1308 becomes 1309. The seasons turn outside your stone walls, but in the dim, unchanging twilight of the prison, time is a thick, stagnant pool. Your life becomes a monotonous, unchanging routine that is a pale, ghostly echo of your old monastic life, a meager morning meal, a long day of silent waiting, a meager evening meal, and a long night of troubled sleep. Your body, which was once the finely honed instrument of a warrior, begins to fail. The old wounds from your time on the Strapetto have healed into a permanent grinding ache in your shoulders. You can no longer raise your arms above your head. The lack of sunlight has made your skin a pale, unhealthy gray. The poor food has thinned your frame. You are becoming a stooped, gray-haired man, a shadow of the powerful knight you once were. You watch as the other men around you decline. Some die of sickness, of the jail fever that thrives in the close, damp quarters. Others seem to die of a simple lack of hope, their spirits giving out, their bodies following soon after. You have been a prisoner for almost 3 years. Your confession, the act of betrayal that you committed in a moment of unbearable agony, has now become the defining fact of your existence. It has separated you from your honorable brothers, and it has left you in a state of perpetual, soul-crushing shame. The king whose agents forged this confession from your pain has what he needs. The Pope whose inquisitors ratified it has his evidence. And you, Arnaut, have been left to slowly rot in this forgotten stone chamber, a living testament to the terrible, patient power of the lie. The year is now 1310. You have been a prisoner for 3 years. Your life has been a long, gray, and featureless expanse of time, a quiet waiting in a world of stone and shame. You are a ghost, a man whose life effectively ended the day he was forced to sign his name to a lie. But then something changes. A new group of officials arrives at your prison. They are not the king's men, nor are they the Dominican inquisitors you have seen before. These are high-ranking bishops and archbishops, directly appointed by the Pope. They announce that a new papal commission has been formed in Paris. Its purpose is not to prosecute, but to conduct an impartial inquiry into the conduct and character of the Templar order as a whole. And they are here to gather testimony. Every Templar in the prisons of Paris is to be given a chance to speak freely, to defend his order before God and the Church. For the first time in 3 years, a dangerous and unfamiliar emotion begins to stir in the dead ashes of your heart. It is a flicker of hope. You and your brother knights are taken from your various dungeons and brought to a chapel in the Abbey of Saint-Germain-des-Prés. The atmosphere is completely different from any of the interrogations you have endured. You are not in a torture chamber or a grim office. You are in a holy place. The papal commissioners sit as judges, but their demeanor is one of scholarly inquiry, not of prosecutorial zeal. A call is made. Who among the knights of the temple will speak in defense of their order? For a long, tense moment, a fearful silence hangs in the air. The men are broken, terrified. They know that the king's agents are watching these proceedings, taking note of every name. To speak out is to mark oneself as an enemy of the king. Then, a single man, a knight named Poncer de Gissy, steps forward. He is not a great commander, but he is a man of courage. He stands before the papal commission, and with a voice that is at first trembling but grows stronger with every word, he begins to tell the truth. He speaks not of heresy, but of the order's piety, of the daily masses, of the charity, of the blood shed in the Holy Land. He refutes the grotesque charges one by one, and then for the first time in a public and formal setting, he speaks of the torture. He tells the commissioners how the king's men arrested them, how they were thrown into dungeons and starved. He describes the strappado, the rack, the burning of feet with hot irons. He tells them how he and hundreds of his brothers were tortured relentlessly until they agreed to confess to any lie, any absurdity that was put before them. I would have confessed that I had killed God himself, he says, his voice breaking with a mixture of rage and shame. His testimony is a dam breaking. The moment he is finished, another knight, a man from the resistor group in your own prison, stands and shouts his agreement. Then another and another. A great cathartic wave of defiance sweeps through the assembled knights. The years of enforced silence, of shame and of fear are washed away in a sudden, glorious flood of truth. The commissioners, who had until now only read the neat, uniform confessions, are visibly shaken. They have been presented with a new and horrifying reality. They begin to formally gather the names of all those who wish to testify in defense of the order. You aren't out. Watch this unfold from the back of the chapel, your heart pounding in your chest. You are a confessor. Your signed and ratified lie is in a ledger somewhere. A permanent mark against your name and against the order. To speak out now would be to admit that you have lied to the Pope's own inquisitors, to brand yourself a perjurer, a relapsed heretic. The risk is immense. The safe path is to remain silent, to cling to the miserable security of your confession. But as you listen to the brave testimony of your brothers, as you hear them describe the same agonies you yourself endured, something within you, something you thought was long dead, begins to stir. It is your honor. It is the pride of the temple, which is the simple, powerful, and almost forgotten desire to tell the truth. You see men you know, other confessors, broken men like yourself, begin to rise. You see them walk with a slow, deliberate, and newly found dignity to the front of the chapel to add their names to the list of defenders. They are choosing to recant, to take back their lies, whatever the cost. They are choosing to become Templars again. You think of your vows. You think of your brothers who died in the Holy Land. You think of the shame that has been your constant companion for 3 long years. And you know what you must do. With your legs unsteady, you push yourself to your feet. You begin the long walk from the back of the chapel to the front, where the commissioner scribe is recording the names. Every step is a war with the fear that has been your master for so long. Right. But with every step, you feel a little stronger, a little straighter. You are no longer a broken, guilty thing hiding in the shadows. You are Arnaut, a knight of the temple, and you are walking towards the light. You reach the scribe's table. My name is Arnaut de la Fort. You say, your voice clear and steady. I too was tortured. A confession is a lie. I wish to speak in defense of my order. The scribe writes down your name. It's done. You have recanted. You have chosen truth over safety, feeling of peace. A peace you have not felt since that last quiet night in your commandery settles over you. You do not know if you have just signed your own death warrant, but you know for the first time in 3 years that you have saved your own soul. Your decision to recant your confession, an act of pure, terrified courage, is echoed by hundreds of your brother knights. The trickle of defiance that began with Ponsard de Gissy becomes a flood. In the prisons throughout Paris, the men of the temple, who had been isolated, broken, and shamed, begin to find their collective voice once more. The king's strategy of separating and terrorizing you has backfired. By bringing you together for this inquiry, the Papal Commission has inadvertently allowed the Brotherhood of the Temple to be reborn. The atmosphere in your prison chamber is transformed. The silent, agonizing schism between the confessors and the resistors dissolves. You are all defenders now, united by a common purpose, to tell the truth and to save the order. The men begin to organize. They elect spokesmen knights with some knowledge of the law to coordinate your defense. The quiet, shame-filled whispers of the past are replaced by loud, energetic debates as the knights help each other to remember the details of their torture, to find the inconsistencies in the accusations, and to build a great collective wall of testimony. You are no longer a broken, isolated man. You are once again Brother Arnaut, a member of a proud and defiant warband. The physical ache in your shoulders remains, a permanent reminder of your ordeal, but the deeper, spiritual ache of your shame has begun to recede, replaced by a renewed sense of purpose and of hope. Finally, the day comes when your own name is called. You are to give your formal testimony before the Papal Commission. You are led once more to the chapel at the Abbey of Saint-Germain-des-Prés. But this time, you do not walk as a condemned man. You walk with your head held high. You stand before the panel of bishops. The room is quiet, the atmosphere one of solemn, scholarly inquiry. This is not the king's dungeon. This is the church's court, and you cling to the fragile hope that here the truth will matter. A clerk asks you to state your name and to swear an oath on a holy relic to speak the truth. You do so, your voice clear and steady. The lead commissioner then asks you to recount your story. You begin, as you have been instructed by your spokesman, by establishing your credentials. You tell them your name, the date you were received into the order. and you detail your long years of service, including the battles you fought at Acre and Tortosa. You are establishing that you are not a coward or a traitor, but a loyal and tested soldier of Christ. Then you begin to address the charges. You calmly and methodically refute each one. You describe the true nature of your reception ceremony, a solemn, pious vow of obedience, and a swearing to defend the faith unto death. You state clearly and unequivocally that you did not deny Christ, that you did not spit on the cross, and that you have never seen or heard of any idol named Baphomet. Finally, you tell them of your confession. Your voice remains calm, but it is filled with a cold, righteous anger. You recount the events of your arrest on the morning of Friday the 13th. You describe the conditions in the king's dungeon, the isolation, the fear, and then you describe your interrogation. You tell them of the questions, of the threats, and of the strappado. You describe the pain, the dislocation of your shoulders, the feeling of your own body being torn apart. You tell them that you held to the truth for as long as you were able, but that the pain was a thing that no man could endure forever. I confessed, your graces, you say, your voice now a low, powerful testament. I confess to any lie they put in my mouth. I would have confessed, as my brother Ponzard said, to killing God himself, if it would have made the pain stop. The words that the king's scribe wrote down were the words of my interrogator. The voice was mine, but the will was his. My confession was a product of agony, not of truth. You finish your testimony, and a deep silence fills the room. The bishops look at you, their faces a mixture of horror and pity. The scribe's quill has been flying across the parchment, capturing every word. Your story is not unique. It is one of hundreds of almost identical accounts of systematic state-sponsored torture. The case that the King of France has so carefully built against your order is beginning to crumble, revealed for what it is. A monstrous slander, built on a foundation of lies, extracted through pain. The inquiry continues for months. The hope among the imprisoned knights grows stronger with each passing day. Nearly 600 Templars in Paris alone have now formally registered to defend the order. The sheer volume of their unified testimony is overwhelming. It seems impossible that the Pope, in the face of such evidence, could do anything but declare the order innocent and punish the king for his terrible crime. You and your brothers, back in your prison cell, dare to speak of the future. You speak of your release, of returning to your commanderies, of the great ceremonies that will be held to restore the order's honor. You believe, with a fierce and growing certainty, that you are winning. You believe that you have faced down the King of France himself, armed only with the truth. You believe that justice, though it has been delayed for 3 long and terrible years, is finally at hand. The spring of 1310 is a season of fragile, dangerous hope. The Papal Commission continues its work, and day after day, a steady stream of your brother knights stands before the bishops and tells the truth. The sheer volume of testimony is a powerful, unified chorus, all singing the same song of innocence, of torture, and of betrayal by the king's men. The case against the order, which once seemed so absolute, now appears to be a flimsy fabrication, destined to collapse under the weight of the truth. In your prison, the mood is one of cautious, almost giddy optimism. The divisions have vanished. You are all Templars again. You share your meager rations. You speak of the future, of the day you will be released, of the great task of rebuilding the order's shattered reputation. You believe in the process. You believe in the Pope. You believe that the Church your true and only master, will protect its own. It is a beautiful, fleeting, and fatally naive belief. You have forgotten the nature of your enemy. You're in a battle of law and theology. But King Philip the Fair is in a war of absolute power, and he is a man who does not play by the rules. The king and his ruthless minister, Guillaume de Nogaret, are enraged by the turn the inquiry has taken. The mass recantations are a direct assault on the king's own authority, an accusation that he, the most Christian king of France, has used lies and torture to condemn an innocent religious order. This is a challenge he cannot and will not tolerate. While the Papal Commission deliberates, the king makes his move. It is a masterstroke of legal brutality, a flanking maneuver that bypasses the Pope's authority entirely. He and his loyal clerics invoke a terrible and obscure point of inquisitorial law. A heretic who confesses and is reconciled with the Church, then later revokes that confession, is to be considered a relapsed heretic. And for a relapsed heretic, there is no need for a new lengthy trial. The judgment is automatic, and the punishment is absolute: death by fire. The king now has his weapon, and he wields it with a swift and terrifying cruelty. One morning in early May, the royal guards enter the prisons, but they are not there for another hearing. They have a list. It is a list of the leaders of the Templar defense. It's the most eloquent spokesmen, the very men who had first inspired you to recant your own confession. They are shackled and led away, not to the Papal Commission, but to a different court, one controlled by the king's own, hand-picked Archbishop of Sens. The news of this sends a wave of confusion and unease through your prison, but you still do not grasp the full, horrifying scope of the king's plan. The next day, the news arrives, and it is a blow from which you will never recover. The Archbishop, in a single rushed session, has condemned all 54 of the captured Templar defenders as relapsed heretics. The sentence is to be carried out immediately. That very evening, in a farmer's field outside of Paris, 54 wooden stakes are driven into the ground. It's the leaders of your defense, the bravest of your brothers, are tied to them. The pyres are lit. The story, when it is told to you by a horrified, trembling guard, is one of almost unimaginable courage and horror. He tells you that the men died well, that they died as Templars. He tells you that they sang hymns as the flames rose, and that to their very last breath, they screamed their innocence and the innocence of the Holy Order. He tells you that the crowd that had been gathered to watch a spectacle of justice was instead reduced to a stunned, horrified silence by this act of mass murder. The effect of this news on the remaining prisoners is immediate and catastrophic. It is a message delivered in the language of fire and death, and its meaning is clear. The Pope cannot protect you. The truth cannot save you. This is what happens to those who defy the king. The great, unified, and hopeful defense of the Templar Order collapses overnight. The will of the Brotherhood, which had been so miraculously reforged, is shattered into 1,000 pieces of pure animal terror. When the Papal commissioners call for more witnesses the next day, no one steps forward. As men who had proudly given their names to defend the order now fall to their knees, weeping, begging to have their names removed from the list. Many of them recant their recantations, reverting to their original false confessions, choosing a life of shame over the certainty of an agonizing death by fire. You are once again a broken man. The fleeting hope that had given you the strength to reclaim your honor is burned to ash, along with the bodies of your brothers. You are trapped. The king has proven that he will stop at nothing, and the church has proven that it is either unwilling or unable to stand in his way. You are left in your cell, the silence of your prison now a silence of utter abject despair. There will be no more testimony. There will be no more talk of justice. The great inquiry is over, not by a verdict, but by an act of terror. You have told the truth, and you have seen the price of it. All that is left now is to wait for the final inevitable judgment, a judgment that you now know will be decided not by evidence, but by the cold political calculations of a ruthless king and a weak, intimidated pope. The smoke from the pyres of your 54 brothers seems to hang over the city of Paris for days, a foul-smelling, ever-present reminder of the king's brutal victory. In the prisons, a new and final silence descends. It is not the silence of discipline, nor the silence of anticipation. It is the silence of absolute, abject defeat. The great unified defense of the order is dead. The men who had stood so bravely to speak the truth have been silenced by fire. You and the hundreds of other defenders who remain are left in a state of pure, cold terror. The choice is no longer between truth and a lie. It is now a choice between telling the truth and being burned alive, or remaining silent and hoping for a scrap of mercy. The brotherhood that had been so miraculously reborn in the papal inquiry has been shattered, its members retreating once more into the isolated private prisons of their own fear. You have recanted your confession. You have declared your innocence before the Pope's own commissioners. And you have seen the fate of those who did the same with a louder voice. You are now a marked man, a relapsed heretic in the eyes of the king's law. And you simply wait for your own name to be called, for your own journey to the stake. But the call does not come. The great grinding machinery of the trial, which had seemed to be moving towards a final, terrible climax, instead slows down and then seems to stop altogether. The days turn into weeks, the weeks into months, and the months into 2 more, long, gray, and silent years of imprisonment. You live in a state of suspended animation, a ghost in a forgotten dungeon. The great political and religious battle for the fate of your order is now being fought in a world far above you. In the courts of the king and the great councils of the church, you are no longer a participant, not even a victim. You are merely a piece of evidence, locked away in a drawer waiting for the final judgment. Then, in the spring of 1312, the news finally arrives. It comes not as a dramatic verdict, but as a quiet, devastating rumor that filters through the prison. The Pope, Clement V, has convened a great council in the city of Vienne to finally decide the fate of the order. King Philip of France is there, not as a witness, but as a threat, his army encamped outside the city walls. A clear and present message to the assembled bishops. The Pope is in an impossible position. He has seen the reports from his commissions outside of France, the overwhelming testimony of the order's innocence. But he has also seen the king's ruthless determination. He knows that Philip will not rest until the temple is destroyed. And so he chooses not the path of justice, but the path of political expediency. The news, when it is formally announced, is a masterpiece of bureaucratic evasion. The Order of the Knights Templar has not been found guilty of heresy. The charges the Pope declares are not proven. But he continues, the Order's reputation has been so irrevocably damaged by the scandal, its honor so deeply stained, that it can no longer effectively serve its purpose. And therefore, by the authority of a papal bull, the order of the poor fellow soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon is to be, not condemned, but perpetually dissolved. The words are a final, soul-crushing betrayal. Your order has not been defeated in battle. It has not been convicted of any crime. It has simply been erased, extinguished by the pen of a weak and terrified pope, a political sacrifice to appease a greedy king. Your brothers who were burned alive, who died proclaiming the order's innocence, have been denied their final victory. Their truth did not matter. Your own recantation, your own act of courage, was a meaningless gesture. With the order now officially non-existent, the final administrative task is to decide what to do with the thousands of its members who are still languishing in prisons. A new series of judgments begins, this time to determine the personal fate of each individual knight. You are brought once more before a panel of church officials. There is no interrogation, no threat of torture. There is only a quiet, bureaucratic finality. Your case is read aloud. Arnaut de Lafort, a knight who confessed under duress, who recanted his confession to defend the order and who then fell silent after the great burnings. You are a problematic case, but your fate is a common one. You are declared to be reconciled with the Church. Your sentence is not death. It is a life of penance. You are to be transferred to a remote monastery of a different order, and you will live out the remainder of your days as a prisoner. Your life dedicated to prayer and to the quiet contemplation of your perceived sins. Your life as a Templar is over. You are led from the dungeon in Paris, your home for 5 long and terrible years. You are no longer a proud knight, a member of an elite and holy brotherhood. You are not even a heretic. You are nothing. You are a man without a tribe, without a purpose, without a name that is your own anymore. You are a living ghost, a relic of a dissolved and disgraced institution, beginning your final, slow, and silent journey into utter obscurity. Your journey from the dungeons of Paris to your new prison is a slow, silent procession through a land that no longer recognizes you. You were taken to a remote Cistercian monastery, nestled deep in a quiet wooded valley. It is, on the surface, a place of peace and contemplation. But for you, it is simply a different kind of cell, one with a larger yard and a prettier view. You are no longer bound in chains, but you are a prisoner nonetheless. Your life is now governed by the gentle, rhythmic ringing of the monastery's bells, a sound that is a constant, painful echo of the disciplined. Purposeful life you once knew in the commandery. You eat the simple, vegetarian fare of the monks. You attend the 7 daily prayer services in their chapel, a silent, awkward guest in another man's faith. You are given light work to do, tending the monastery's herb garden or sweeping the cloister walkways. The Cistercian monks, men who have chosen this life of quiet contemplation, treat you with a distant, cautious pity. They see you as a fallen soul, a member of a great and proud order that succumbed to a terrible, diabolical pride. They do not speak to you of your past, and you have no desire to speak of it either. You're a ghost among them, a living relic of a dead and disgraced brotherhood. The years continue their slow, relentless march. 1312 becomes 1313. Your world shrinks to the stone walls of the monastery and the slow, predictable turning of the seasons in the small garden you tend. The sharp, agonizing edges of your ordeal have been worn smooth by the simple, grinding monotony of time. The physical pain in your shoulders has settled into a dull, permanent ache. The spiritual pain of your betrayal has become a silent, ever-present companion, a shadow from which you can never fully escape. You are a man living entirely in the past, your mind a silent museum of battles fought in the Holy Land, and of the terrible, incomprehensible injustice that followed. Then, One evening in the spring of 1314, a traveling friar seeks shelter at the monastery for the night, and he brings with him news from Paris. News of the final, terrible, and magnificent end of the leaders of your order. You sit in the refectory, and you listen as the friar tells his story to the hushed monks. He tells them that after 7 long years of imprisonment, the Grand Master, Jacques de Maul, and the preceptor of Normandy, Geoffroy de Charny, were finally brought from their dungeons. They were taken to a public scaffold erected in the plaza before the Cathedral of Notre Dame. Their final, recanted confessions were read aloud, and they were sentenced as reconciled heretics to a life of perpetual imprisonment. The trial of the Knights Templar was, at last, officially over. But it was not. The friar's voice drops to a low, awed whisper as he describes what happened next. The 2 old men, their bodies broken by years of imprisonment, were asked to publicly affirm their confessions one last time before the people of Paris. And in that moment, a final, incredible, and suicidal act of courage, they found their voices. Jacques de Maul, his voice weak but clear, declared that his confession was a lie, a falsehood extracted from him by the agony of torture. He proclaimed for all to hear that the order of the temple was pure, holy, and innocent of all the vile charges laid against it. Geoffroy de Charny, standing beside him, shouted his own agreement, stating that he was ready to die for the truth. The crowd and the king's officials were thrown into a state of absolute shock. The king, Philip the Fair, who was present to witness this final public humiliation of his enemies, was consumed by a cold, immediate, and absolute fury. His perfectly orchestrated political theater had been shattered by the defiance of 2 old dying men. He did not wait for the church to act. He did not consult his inquisitors. Acting on his own royal authority, he declared the 2 men to be relapsed heretics, and he ordered them to be executed that very same evening. The friar describes the final grim scene. A new pyre was hastily constructed on a small island in the river Seine, in the very shadow of the cathedral. As the sun set, the 2 old leaders of your order were tied to the stake. They died as martyrs, the friar whispers, his eyes wide with the memory. They asked to have their hands unbound so they could face the Cathedral of Our Lady and die in prayer. And as the flames rose, the Grand Master, his voice never faltering, proclaimed the innocence of the order one last time. And he summoned both Pope Clement and King Philip to meet him before the judgment seat of God within the year. A deep, profound silence fills the refectory. You sit, frozen, the friar's words echoing in your mind. A feeling of immense, terrible, and beautiful pride swells in your chest, a feeling you thought you had lost forever. Your leaders, after years of shame and humiliation, had, in their final moments, reclaimed their honor. They had died as true knights of the temple. But their glorious, defiant death only serves to highlight the quiet, gray emptiness of your own life.
Ow.
They have found their end in a blaze of fire and martyrdom. Your own sentence is to slowly, silently, and anonymously fade away in this quiet, forgotten corner of the world. Your name and your story known to no one. The great tragic story of the Knights Templar is over, and you are merely a living, breathing, and utterly insignificant epilogue. The news of the Grand Master's final, defiant martyrdom is the last piece of news from the outside world that truly matters to you. It is the final, closing chapter of the great story of the Knights Templar. The order did not die with the Pope's decree of dissolution. It died in the flames on that small island in the Seine, with its honor reclaimed, its innocence proclaimed one last time by its last great leader. In the months that follow, other stranger rumors find their way even to your remote monastery. You hear that Pope Clement V, a man broken by the ordeal, died in agony only a month after the Grand Master's execution. Before the year is out, you hear that the powerful King Philip the Fair, your great betrayer, has died suddenly from a stroke while hunting. You feel no joy at this news, no sense of triumph. You only feel a deep, cold, and weary sense of cosmic balance. The Grand Master's curse from the flames, it seems, has been fulfilled. God has rendered his own final judgment. The great world-shaking drama is now over. And you, Arnaut, are left to live out the long, quiet, and profoundly empty epilogue. The years turn into decades. You live a life of quiet routine, a ghost in a Cistercian monastery. You are a man without an order, without a sword, and without a past that you can speak of. You work in the monastery's garden. Your hands, which were once calloused from the hilt of a broadsword, are now calloused from the handle of a garden hoe. You learn the gentle, patient rhythms of the earth, the turning of the seasons, the quiet miracle of a seed becoming a flower. The younger monks who enter the monastery know you only as Brother Arnaut, the strange, silent old man who lives in the penitent's cell. They do not know that you once charged a Saracen line at Acre, that you once stood guard over the holy places in Jerusalem. You were a member of the most powerful military order in the world. The Knights Templar for them are just a story, a dark and cautionary tale of pride and heresy. The living, breathing reality of the order, its piety, its courage, its immense and complicated history, now exists only in the fading memories of forgotten men like you. You grow old. Your hair is white as snow, your body stooped and frail. The fire of your old anger has long since burned out, leaving only the cool gray ash of a deep and settled melancholy. The shame of your forced confession has not disappeared, but it is softened with the passing of a lifetime, becoming a familiar, quiet ache in your soul, like the ache in your old wounds on a cold, damp morning. One evening in the last years of your life, you were sitting on a stone bench in the monastery garden as the sun sets. The sky is a blaze of orange and red, the same colors that you saw in the flames that took your brothers in Paris so long ago. A young novice is practicing with a wooden sword in the courtyard, his movements clumsy and full of a youthful, innocent aggression. The sight, the light, the sound, it all combines to unlock a memory. For a fleeting, powerful moment, you are no longer an old man in a French garden. You're a young knight, standing on the great walls of a crusader castle. Looking out over the parched, alien landscape of the Holy Land, you can feel the weight of your mail coif on your head, the reassuring presence of your sword at your hip. You can smell the dust, the strange spices, and the salt of the distant sea. You can feel the warm, brotherly presence of the other knights beside you, a silent, unified wall of faith and steel. You remember, with a clarity that is almost painful, the profound and simple certainty of your purpose. The memory is a gift. It is a reminder of who you were before the betrayal, before the torture, before the long gray years of shame. A bell begins to ring, the call to the evening prayer service, the vespers. The sound is gentle, peaceful. Your long day is over. Your long, sad, and complicated life of penance is almost at an end. You have survived your own story. And in the quiet of this final evening, you have finally, after all these years, made your peace with the ghost of the man you used to be. Our journey with the accused Knight Templar is now at an end. We have felt the quiet piety of the commandery, the cold stone of the royal dungeon, and the heat of the final defiant flames. It was a world where faith was a weapon, where loyalty was a trap, and where the honor of a holy warrior was destroyed by the ambition of a king. That world of chanted prayers, of rattling chains, and of whispered confessions has now faded away, leaving only the quiet of the present moment. The knight's long and tormented life is over. ... And now, so is yours. There is nothing left to do but to rest, to let go of the day, and to drift into the deep and peaceful sleep that you deserve. Rest now. Sleep well.